Hello, this is Eric from Elemental Arts Initiative. I'm a guide, a teacher, an artist, using tarot, astrology, and my intuitive gifts to help us all become oracular artists, alchemists, and to speak about February 2024. Wow, what a month. Right off the bat, as I kind of contemplate and feel into this month, it's truly asking us to step into an archetype that's very uncomfortable for us. It's an archetype that gets diminished and demeaned, and so much so that we don't even necessarily think of it. Nobody's sitting here at home thinking, I want to be this archetype. We all want to be the king or the queen. We want to be the hero. Or we want to be the warrior. But to get to any of these places, we first must step into the archetype of being the fool. This is an age and a month that's going to really ask us to confront the parts of ourselves that we most don't want to look at, we most don't want to see, that we most don't want to feel. And in order to do that, the first stage of it feels foolish. The first stage of it feels awkward. And so before the precursor, the foreplay of the king is the fool. You know, the way do we get somewhere? We have to go through a stage into a space that feels very foolish. Pluto, a planet, it's not even a planet, but is it, and astrologically speaking, we call it a planet, went into Aquarius at the end of January. And this was a shift, a generational shift. Pluto, when it shifts signs, it's many ways like shifting between millennials to Gen X to, the different, to whatever the different, those, when we talk about those different ages, those ages correspond in many ways to Pluto and the different astrological signs. And this shift, so that shows you that it's like roughly a 20-year shift that we're going to be in here in Aquarius. And Aquarius, Pluto's never not been in Aquarius in our lifetime. It's the last time it was in Aquarius was way back in the early 19th century, end of the 18th century. It's a long time that it's been there. And don't hold me on those dates of that. That's just off the top of my head. But it's been a long time ago. I used to teach history. Dates are important, but just know it's a couple hundred years ago. So it's a while ago. What's happening, though, is we have Pluto moving into this time of Aquarius. We have a period that's moving things that were, let's say, we're peripherally aware of. They're going to become front and center. When if any one of us have peripherally aware of the fact that AI or that technology is going to be shaping our humanity, we're peripherally aware of that. This is going to be an age where we will be confronted with the fact of what it is to be a human being. What does it mean to be a human being? How can we be a human being and compete with all of the information and knowledge at anyone's disposal, which is AI? What does it measure of being a human being? Is it about being knowledgeable? Is it about being efficient? Is it about being the smartest, or is it about accomplishing things? Because all of these things with AI, what it is to be of value in that is going to all come into question, because it's going to be so exponential, and humans, we will all feel so foolish in the shadow of AI. And if we think that we are going to be in a competitive streak with AI or with the powers that be, we're going to be in for it. And so Pluto coming in there is going to ask us to die in a way, and maybe literally, but figuratively, this ego death, that this regenerative quality, the Pluto, when we think of Pluto and its energies, it's a death and a rebirth. It's a renewal, it's a transformation, it's an evolution. And as we come into this month and we're feeling into this month, we're being begged and asked and told there's no other options. We either need to die to who we are, to who we think we are, and regenerate and find some regenerative quality in that. And what I mean by that is, like, think of the compost, think of nature, look to nature. These things, there can be death and then rebirth. It happens literally every year with the seasons. It happens with the detritus. When things die off, they come back and they're reborn. We have that capacity. That's what alchemy is. This is the regenerative quality that is within us, where these tough situations, these tough times, they're asking us to regenerate. And on the other side of that, coming out of that, that transformation, that power to do that, when we think of power in Pluto, that's the power. The power is not power over. The power is the power within us to transform and to evolve into this new period and this new time. And as the month begins, right away, it's asking us, Mercury on February 5th, that's a couple days ago as I'm speaking, Mercury, that of mind, of communication, and of intellect, that energy of planet moving quickly. We all know, many of us know about Mercury retrograde. Well, as it comes in, it conjunct, and it's the first to come into Aquarius and hit Pluto in Aquarius at 0 degrees. It happened on February 5th. This hasn't happened again, like I said, in our lifetime. We haven't had Pluto in Aquarius, so we haven't had Pluto conjunct Mercury in Aquarius. What a powerhouse for that to come together, bringing and digging up anything anything that's no longer serving us, anything in our relationships, anything that's behind the scenes that we don't want to talk about, that we don't want to speak about. These things are getting dragged up and brought up to the surface. It's not going to serve us anymore to be deceitful, to lie, to lie to ourselves, to not be authentic. This stuff is going to come out. It's going to be festered in our being. If we're not dying to ourselves, we're going to die within ourselves. Like, we need to figure out how to bring this quality of the 5 of Cups, where we have these things that go into disarray, these mourning periods, these tough times. How do we turn these things into something that has a regenerative quality? How do we come out of it on the other side and come into the Star card, which is the card of renewal post the Tower, post the falling, the down of this. This is what this Pluto and Aquarius is coming in. So Mercury, and it's all a hero's journey too. And this is another way of kind of thinking of it. As Mercury comes in and comes into this new period of time, it comes along and it instigates things and stirs things up a little bit. And once it's stirred up, we've got Mars following shortly after that. Mars, that of action, the warrior, assertion. It's going to need its courage to come along. And that comes along later in February. We have that coming, I think the date for that is coming right up. 14th, it might be right before the 14th. It's right around Valentine's Day that Mars comes in and is conjunct that same Pluto, that it's stirring things up, stirring in a way that whatever's happening in those fields. This is not a time to talk about losing your cool. Mars and Pluto together accentuates the parts of us that are feeling extra aggressive or feeling extra forceful, or all of these things. But how can we turn this into a positive thing? Well, it's taking this energy to be courageous, taking these things, the things that got stirred up back with Mercury. Can we be courageous in confronting them? Can we take action on things that need to be taken out? Can we access some valor? Can we have valor as we move forward? How can we be valorous in dealing with and confronting the things that need to be confronted in our own personal life or in the life at large? So right after Mars coming into conjunction, we have Venus coming in after that. So Venus comes in shortly after that. So we got Venus and Mars conjunct with Pluto, and they're all hanging out together. And a little bit after that, we have Mars and Venus conjunct each other. And Venus is this planet that, romance, desire, how we love, what we value, the parts of us that have desires, wants. It's more of what we might call like a feminine energy, yin, a receptive energy. And it's coming in and holding court with Pluto, holding court with Mars, all together, holding us all together. What a time to set a new tone, a new space for the month, for this period of time that is the Aquarian time. And as I speak about a new time, I don't want to lose sight of the fact. Let's go backwards, because I just marked this period of, we had Mercury and then Mars and then Venus kind of marking the heroic journey that is uh, our time of Aquarius. I love thinking about this. If something's being stirred up that needs to be stirred up, Mars having the courage, the valor to deal with it, and Venus coming back together to bring it back together, to hold us together. How can we, truly the act of love and its higher side is a quality that can hold positive regard, that can integrate us back into doing something in our life together with the others, with the full knowledge, with knowing the brutal facts, with that Stockdale paradox of being able to remain optimistic even in the midst of knowing the worst. How do we retain that optimism? How do we hold that? That's the higher vibration of a Venusian energy. And as we set this tone in this new Pluto and Aquarian age, I feel like this marks what, in many ways, brings us kind of the like the map of how we're able to approach this new period. But I'm going to go backwards a little bit, just to the beginning of the month, to tomorrow, actually, as I speak about this. This is, or today, if you're listening to this today, or whenever you might be days ago. But there is a new moon. And this new moon, boy, does it sort of map out perfectly. And this new moon's on February 9th. And this new moon is square. So new moon meaning moon, right? So moon is in Aquarius with the sun, same place, same thing. And it's square Uranus. And Aquarius, when modern day ruler of Aquarius, is Uranus. So the energy that is already of Aquarius is squaring the very thing that it is. That square gives it a little bit of a kind of like, it brings it out, it accentuates it, it makes it a little bit more, there could be some resistance to it. There could be something that could feel a little bit disjointed and off about it. But it could also be something that brings things up, stirs things up, so that we have to confront them. This Aquarian age is not a time for us to not step into our authenticity. This is not a time to sort of be tepid. This is not a time to go along with the flow. If we go along with the flow, this is where it comes into that Ahrimanic, this pressure of bringing us all into this hyper materialism, hyper conformity, hyper kind of flattening of the aesthetics, the flattening of our time, of what even of culture. The problem with technology, and in many ways, as we go more and more into these things, the pockets of uniqueness that are to be there's this effect where you have more and more people with all the wealth, the 1%, but even this accentuates it to this high degree. This situation can be alleviated through us stepping into our uniqueness, stepping into our authenticity, and then finding other people that we resonate with. This is the potential period of this time. And this, when going back to that Mars and that Venus conjunction that I spoke about earlier, this is asking us to find our soul families, to find the community and the others and the people that we can come together, that we can share our values with, and that can bring us into a more hopeful period. This is not, there are many things to be afraid of. There are things that are of our time and of this period that are going to ask us to confront our fears. But as I spoke about with Pluto, is this regenerative quality that's really truly asking us, how can we take those fears? How can we take these things of these trials, and how can we transform them into something that is a renewing quality, a renewal quality, something that is a rebirth, where we can take the hard things and transform them into something that's life-giving, something that we can learn from. It's easy for me to talk about that and say that, but it's much, much harder for us, obviously. But this is where Mars comes in, and this is where Venus comes in, and this is where Mercury. So Mercury telling you, hey, here's the issues. Mars, courage to deal with the issues. Venus, here's how we come back together with that courage to love ourselves, love the situation, figure out how we can kind of regenerate and bring ourselves into this new space. Towards the end of the month, there's a full moon this full moon, it's got a nice little aspect with Jupiter, which is going to give us some hope. It's got an expansive, kind of optimistic vibe to it. And then also right at the end of the month, there's a cool little thing with it called the Kazemi, which is when planets are right conjunct with the sun. And we've got one with Mercury, and we've got one with Saturn. So right at the end of the month, we've got some wonderful opportunity for some structure, some organization with the Saturnian energy, and that Mercury energy that I talked about, that intellect, the communication, all coming together to provide us with saying, hey, what part of us, where's the form for all this hope or whatever that's getting stirred up this month? Where can we bring some form at the end of the month to it? On the shadow side of that form, when it's lined up, can be a bit of the bed of Procrustes, and the bed of Procrustes is where, in order to fit, it's a myth where in order to fit into this bed, Procrustes would chop off the feet or the head, the parts of us that didn't fit. And it's a wonderful kind of allegory of, as we get more and more into a technological age, things that don't fit the technology or the ways that technology can compute it, there's not a button for that quality, then we lose them. And so this is the great sort of arbiter of our time, is that the language, culture, art, our uniqueness, the parts of us that are inefficient, the parts of us, our feelings, our emotions, all of these things can be pushed out. And this is where we have to be wary of that and be cautious of that and be thinking about how can we hold the parts of ourselves and hold ourselves in this period. And I feel like one of the things that with Aquarius, it's often talked about with this energy, that it can be a little dispassionate, it can be cold and calculating. And as we step into a more and more of this sort of vein, the parts of us that are inefficient, like I spoke of, are often the parts of us that are feeling oriented or sensitive. These parts of ours, if we're not able to navigate this terrain, own that, hold that, honor that, and find ways to bring some of this renewing quality to it, bring some of this compassionate quality to it, and integrate that and weave that into our own life and bring that out into others, it can be a very, we'll lose that, and this is where we have to bring that humane side of ourselves into humane. What is it to be compassionate for the other? And even in that becomes political side, becomes a whole political venture. And I don't want to speak about that. I want to speak about just the notion within your own life, how we can bring that forward. And how can you do that where you're drawn to do that, where you can hold yourself and hold contemplation for a regenerative quality within yourselves, for yourself, and for others. So as we're in this period of time, it's an intense period of time. I feel like the tools that are necessary for us can be, like I started with, they often we can feel very foolish as we navigate this. And I want to really speak to the Fool card. And tarot is the Fool that takes the journey of the tarot. As we're here in this month of February, invite in the parts of us that feel foolish. Don't judge them. We start the Fool and we end the Fool. The difference at the end is it's a wise fool. Be more like a child, Jesus said. The mind of a child is what gets into the kingdom of heaven. This quality of coming into a space of heaven on earth, a more benign, beautiful space, can only come as we lose off, die off the parts of us that no longer serve us. And I think in some way, sometimes as we look at a sign and we look to its opposite sign to give some clues to how to navigate. And Leo over there on the opposite is the opposite of Aquarius. Pluto in Aquarius is asking us to look at Leo and say, hey, you can be of help over there, but only when that ego dies. And only when you can bring that warmth of the sun and that warmth of your individuality, that can now shine its light over here as we step into that, like I spoke about that as we speak about this period. The end of the month, the full moon's going to be in Virgo. That's going to be another kind of it'll be an opportunity for us to bring some more of this health quality to us as well as we look at that. Yeah. So anyway, thank you for listening, and good luck with the month.